All right, so today we're diving into a topic that might not immediately scream excitement. Annuities.
Yeah, not exactly the most thrilling dinner table conversation.
Haha, right. But seriously, though, annuities are something that a lot of people are curious about as they plan for retirement or just look for ways to manage their money better.
Definitely, it's a hot topic.
So I think it's worth a deep dive.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're like me, you hear the word annuity and you're like, what is that again? It can seem kind of complicated.
I think a lot of people feel that way.
But at its core, an annuity is basically a way to get a steady stream of income, usually in retirement,
Right.
like a personal pension plan, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You're basically setting up a contract with an insurance company, and in return, they promise to pay you a regular income.
Okay, that makes it a little clearer. So it's like building your own customized pension.
Exactly. It's all about creating that sense of financial security, especially when you're thinking about retirement.
Right. So let's break it down a bit further. How do annuities actually work? I've heard this analogy about a money jar, which sounds pretty simple.
Yeah, the money jar is a good way to visualize it. You put money into the jar, it grows over time, and then you start receiving regular payments from that jar later on.
Simple enough. But how does the money actually grow in this jar? I've also heard there are, different types of annuities.
You're right, there are several types of annuities, and the way your money grows depends on which type you choose.
Okay, so it gets a little more complicated than just a jar of money.
Yeah. There are fixed annuities, variable annuities, indexed annuities. Then there's also the question of when you want to start receiving those payments.
So like immediate versus deferred annuities.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got a lot to unpack here. Let's start with the different types. First up, fixed annuities. What are those all about?
Fixed annuities are kind of like a supercharged CD. You put in a lump sum of money, and it earns a guaranteed interest rate.
So it's like knowing exactly what you're going to get back. Pretty predictable.
Very predictable. And that can be very appealing, especially for folks who are risk averse.
So fixed annuities are for those who prioritize security and stability.
Got it. What about variable annuities? Those sound a bit riskier.
Variable annuities are more tied to the stock market.
Ah, okay. So your money is invested in things like stocks and bonds, which means there's potential for higher returns, but also more risk.
Exactly. It's like riding the roller coaster of the stock market.
If you're comfortable with a little more volatility, variable annuities could offer the chance for bigger gains, but you also have to stomach those potential dips.
That's the trade-off. Higher potential rewards usually come with higher risk.
Okay, makes sense. Now, is there a middle ground between those two? Something that offers some growth potential, but maybe with a little less risk than a variable annuity?
Yeah, there is. That's where indexed annuities come in. They try to offer the best of both worlds.
How so?
Well, with an indexed annuity, your returns are linked to a specific market index, like the S&P 500, for example.
So your money can grow along with the market, but there are usually some built-in safety features that help protect your principal if the market takes a nosedive.
Ah, so you get some of the upside potential without all the downside risk of a straight-up stock investment.
Right. It's an attractive option for folks who want some growth but also want to sleep well at night knowing their money is relatively protected.
I like that. So we've got fixed, variable, and indexed annuities.
Yeah.
Now, what about that whole immediate versus deferred thing?
That's all about when you start getting those regular payments from your annuity.
Makes sense. So with an immediate annuity, I'm guessing you start getting paid right away.
You got it. You hand over a lump sum of money to the insurance company, and they start sending you regular payments almost immediately.
That makes sense if you're already retired and need that income stream right away.
Exactly.
What about deferred annuities?
With deferred annuities, you're basically letting your money grow for a longer period before those payments start.
Okay, so it's like delaying gratification, but potentially getting a bigger payoff later.
Exactly. It's a good strategy if you're younger and still have a few years before retirement. You can let that money compound and grow tax deferred until you need it.
Okay, this is all starting to make a lot more sense. So we've covered the different types and when you start getting paid, but why would someone even consider an annuity in the first place? What are the big advantages?
Well, one of the biggest draws is that guaranteed income stream. It's like having a paycheck that never stops, even in retirement.
And I'm guessing that can be a huge relief for a lot of people.
It is. It takes away the stress of wondering if your savings will last, especially if you live a long life.
It's like having that financial safety net, knowing you'll have income coming in no matter what.
Absolutely. And there are some pretty sweet tax advantages, too.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading about that.
Yeah.
So how do the taxes work with annuities?
Well, the money you put into an annuity grows tax deferred,
Meaning?
meaning you don't pay taxes on those earnings until you actually start taking the money out.
So it's like letting your money grow and compound without the tax man taking a bite out of it every year.
Exactly. That can make a big difference in the long run. And when you do start taking those payments, they're taxed as ordinary income.
Okay, so you do eventually have to pay taxes on those earnings.
You do, but that tax deferral can be a big benefit, especially if you're in a high tax bracket now and expect to be in a lower bracket in retirement.
So you might end up paying less in taxes overall.
Exactly. Plus, there's a lot of flexibility with annuities. You can customize the terms to fit your specific needs and goals.
So it's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Not at all. You have options, and you can work with a financial advisor to tailor those options to your specific circumstances.
That's good to hear, because I was starting to feel a little overwhelmed with all these different types and options.
I understand. Annuities can seem complicated, but that's why it's so important to work with someone who understands them and can guide you through the process.
I think that's key. Having a trusted expert in your corner can make all the difference. So if someone is starting to think about retirement or just looking for ways to manage their money better, are annuities something worth considering?
Absolutely. If you're looking for guaranteed income, tax advantages, and a way to protect yourself from those market ups and downs, annuities are definitely worth exploring.
Okay, so they're not a magic solution for everyone, but they offer some pretty compelling benefits for a lot of people.
Exactly. But like any financial product, there are some potential downsides to consider. We should probably dive into those next so folks have the full picture.
Good point. You can't all be sunshine and roses, right? Okay, so annuities, they have their upsides, definitely, but let's be real, they can't be perfect.
Right. No
Yeah.
financial product is without its drawbacks.
Exactly. So what are some of the things that people should be aware of? Maybe some potential downsides of annuities.
Well, I think one of the main drawbacks, especially if you're used to having immediate access to your money, is liquidity.
Yeah, liquidity, meaning...
Meaning you can't just pull your money out of an annuity whenever you want without potentially facing some penalties.
Oh, okay, so it's not like a savings account where you can just dip in and out as needed.
Exactly. It's more of a long-term commitment.
So, not ideal if you might need quick access to cash for an emergency or something.
Right. Annuities are really designed to be more of a long-term strategy for things like retirement income.
Makes sense. So liquidity, that's one potential drawback. What about fees? Are those something to be concerned about with annuities?
Yeah, fees are definitely something to pay attention to. Some annuities have fees and others don't. It really depends on the specific annuity and the insurance company offering it.
Okay, so do your research, compare different options, and look closely at those fee structures.
Exactly. You want to make sure you understand all the costs involved before you commit to anything.
Good point. Now, even with all the research in the world, I have to admit that annuities can still feel a bit, complex and kind of intimidating.
Yeah, I get that. They're not the simplest financial product out there. There are a lot of moving parts and different options to consider.
Right. And I think that's why a lot of people feel like they need a guide, someone to help them navigate the annuity maze.
Absolutely. Working with a qualified financial advisor is essential when it comes to annuities. They can help you understand all the ins and outs, explain the different types, and find the annuity that's right for you.
It's like having a financial Sherpa guiding you through the treacherous terrain of annuities. That's a great way to put it.
Aha, I like
So if you're feeling overwhelmed or confused, don't go it alone. Find a financial advisor who specializes in annuities and let them be your guide.
good advice.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about something that comes up a lot with annuities. Taxes.
Oh, yeah, taxes. Can't forget about those.
No, we can't. So break it down for us. How are annuities taxed?
Well, the good news is that annuities offer something called tax-deferred growth,
Tax-deferred growth.
meaning you don't pay taxes on the earnings within your annuity until you start taking the money out.
Oh, okay. So the money grows tax-free until you actually start receiving those payments.
Exactly. And that can be a huge advantage, especially if you're in a high tax bracket now but expect to be in a lower bracket in retirement.
So you're basically postponing those taxes until a potentially more favorable time.
Exactly. It's like getting a tax break now and potentially paying less in taxes later.
That's a pretty sweet deal. But what happens when you do start taking those payments? How are they taxed then?
Those payments are taxed as ordinary income. So the tax rate you'll pay depends on your overall income and tax bracket in the year you receive those payments.
Got it. So you eventually have to pay taxes on those earnings, but that tax deferral can be a big benefit.
Absolutely.
Now, are there any strategies to minimize the taxes you'll eventually owe? Any clever tax moves we should know about?
Yeah, there are definitely some smart strategies you can use. One of the most effective is spreading out your withdrawals over several years.
Instead of taking it all out at once.
Right. By spreading out those withdrawals, you can potentially avoid getting bumped into a higher tax bracket all at once.
Ah, so it's all about staying in that sweet spot tax-wise.
Exactly. And it helps you manage those tax payments more effectively over time.
That's a great tip. Are there any other tax traps we should be aware of? Anything that could catch people off guard?
One big one is early withdrawals. Meaning, if you take money out of your annuity before you reach a certain age, usually 59 and a half, you'll generally have to pay a 10% penalty on top of your regular income taxes.
Oh, wow, a 10% penalty. That's steep.
Yeah, it is. So annuities are really designed to be long-term investments. It's best to avoid tapping into them early unless it's absolutely necessary.
Good to know. So think long-term, avoid early withdrawals, and spread out those payments to minimize your tax burden.
Exactly. Those are some of the key things to keep in mind.
Okay, so we've talked about some potential downsides like liquidity, fees, and the tax implications. But overall, it seems like annuities can offer some real benefits for people planning for retirement or just looking for ways to secure their financial future.
Absolutely. They can be a valuable tool, but it's important to remember that they're not a magic solution for everyone.
Right. It's all about understanding the pros and cons, doing your research, and working with a qualified financial advisor to figure out if an annuity is right for you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Now, in part 3 of our deep dive, we're going to shift gears a bit and explore some of those alternatives to annuities, other financial products out there that people might want to consider. Welcome back to our annuity adventure for the final part of our deep dive.
The grand finale.
Haha. Exactly. We've covered so much ground already.
We have.
From the basics to real life scenarios, those tricky tax implications.
Myth busting too.
Oh yeah. Can't forget about busting those myths. But I feel like there's still more to uncover, right?
Definitely. We've got some advanced annuity concepts to explore still.
Okay, bring it on. Now, we talked a lot about those main types of annuities, the fixed, variable, indexed ones.
Yeah.
But are there any other types of annuities lurking out there that maybe our listeners should know about?
There are a few hidden gems in the annuity world.
Ooh, hidden gems. I like that.
One that's gaining some traction is the multi-year guaranteed annuity.
Multi-year guaranteed annuity. That's a mouthful.
It is, yeah. We usually just call them MYGAs for short.
MYGA. Okay, much easier. So what's an MYGA?
It's actually quite similar to a fixed annuity offering a guaranteed interest rate.
Okay, so predictable returns. I like that.
But the key difference is the time commitment.
Oh, how so?
With a MYGA, you're locking in your money for a longer period.
Longer than a typical fixed annuity.
Exactly. Usually it's somewhere between 3 to 10 years.
So if I'm okay with tying up my money for a bit longer, what's the advantage of a MYGA?
Well, they often come with higher interest rates compared to those traditional fixed annuities.
Ah, I see. So you get rewarded for that longer commitment with potentially higher returns.
That's the idea. Especially when those overall interest rates are low, MYGAs can be an attractive option.
Interesting. So it's like a happy medium between, say, a CD and a fixed annuity.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Okay, MYGAs. Got it. What about those longevity annuities I've heard whispers about? What's the story with those?
Longevity annuities. Sometimes they're called deferred income annuities.
Deferred income annuities. Okay, another mouthful.
Right. But they have a very specific purpose.
Which is?
They're designed to specifically tackle that fear a lot of people have about outliving their savings.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one for a lot of folks.
It is, right? So with a longevity annuity, you actually buy it earlier in life.
Wait, so you're buying it well before retirement?
Yes. And it doesn't start paying out until much later, usually around 80 or 85.
Wow, so it's like a safety net that kicks in when you really need it during those later years.
Exactly. When your other savings might be dwindling, that longevity annuity kicks in and provides guaranteed income.
Wow, so it's like an insurance policy against running out of money in your golden years.
You got it. And the payouts can be pretty substantial because you're essentially betting on living a long life.
Makes sense. So it's a way to hedge against longevity risk.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about alternatives to annuities.
Okay, yeah. Good idea.
Because annuities aren't the only game in town, right?
Yeah.
There are other financial products out there that might offer some similar benefits.
Right. There are definitely other avenues you can explore.
So what are some of those alternatives?
Well, one option is a fixed indexed annuity, sometimes called an FIA.
FIA, okay. And how is that different from like a regular indexed annuity?
It's similar in that your growth potential is linked to a market index.
Okay, so you still have that potential to benefit from market gains.
Right. But FIAs typically have lower fees and often come with more protection against those market drops.
So it's like an indexed annuity, but maybe a bit more refined or fine-tuned.
Yeah, you could say that. They're designed to potentially offer a bit more upside with less downside risk.
Interesting. Okay, so FIAs, those are worth checking out. What else is on the alternative menu?
We've got structured products, though. Those can be a bit more complex.
Structured products? Okay. I'm all ears, but keep it simple for us non-financial wizards.
Haha, I'll do my best. Basically, they combine different assets like stocks, bonds, maybe even some derivatives to create this customized investment strategy.
Ooh, customized. I like that.
Right. But the key is some structured products offer principal protection while others are geared towards those higher returns.
So again, it depends on your risk tolerance and your goals.
Exactly. But it's important to really understand those risks and potential rewards before diving into structured products.
Sounds like it's best to proceed with caution and maybe, get some expert advice on those.
Definitely. They're not for everyone.
Okay, good to know. So we've explored those main types of annuities, the MYGAs, the longevity annuities, and even some alternatives.
A lot of ground covered.
We have. So as we wrap up our annuity adventure, what are, the key takeaways our listeners should remember? What are the big things to keep in mind?
I think the most important thing to remember is that annuities can be a really valuable tool for retirement planning, but they're not, a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right, like we said, it's not a magic bullet.
Exactly. You really have to think carefully about your individual needs and goals, your risk tolerance, all of that before making any decisions.
Don't just jump into anything without doing your research.
Exactly. And this is another big one. Don't underestimate the complexity of annuities.
Oh, yeah, we've established that.
Working with a qualified financial advisor, that can make all the difference in the world.
Having that expert in your corner to guide you through all the options, the fine print.
It's invaluable. It can save you a lot of headaches down the road.
Totally agree. Any other final words of wisdom?
Just remember, annuities are just one piece of the puzzle.
Right, not the whole picture.
Exactly. Build that diversified portfolio, a mix of assets.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
That's the saying. Stocks, bonds, real estate, other investments, that's how you build a solid financial foundation.
It's about spreading that risk and increasing your chances of reaching your financial goals.
Exactly. You want to be prepared for whatever life throws your way.
Great advice. I feel like we've really demystified annuities with this deep dive.
I hope so. Knowledge is power when it comes to finances, right?
Absolutely. So, to our listener, thanks for joining us on this annuity adventure. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep planning for that bright financial future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into annuities. See you next time.